Good morning and welcome to today's meeting of the Suffolk County Council Development and Regulation Committee. I am Councillor Stuart Allen, Chairman of the Committee, and I will be chairing today's proceedings. This meeting is being broadcast live and will also be available to watch subsequently on the Council website. Members of the public and press may record or broadcast the meeting when not lawfully excluded, provided they show due respect to others in attendance in accordance with the Council guidelines. Please ensure that electronic devices are turned off or set to silent and speak clearly into the microphone, avoiding any obstruction to maintain sound quality. We are not expecting a fire drill today. In the event of an alarm, please follow the fire exit signs at the rear of the chamber. Evacuation instructions can also be found on page 3 of the agenda. The first item on today's agenda is the election of a Vice Chairman. I would like to nominate Councillor Martin Robinson. Is there a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Hill. Are there any further nominations? Is the committee content to agree that Councillor Robinson is elected Vice Chairman of the committee for the municipal year 26-27? Yes? Thank you. Agenda 2 is apologies for absence and substitutions. Are there any apologies for absence for today's meeting, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've not received any apologies for today's meeting.
We have been informed that Councillor Whittle has been delayed due to traffic. If he does miss any of the presentation, he will be unable to debate or vote on that particular presentation. Agenda item 3 is declarations of interest and dispensations. Do any of the members of the committee have any declarations of interest in respect of the matters on today's agenda, please? No? Thank you. Thank you, members. Agenda item 4 is the minutes of the meeting held on the 17th of March 2026. Members, we have received assurances from officers that the minutes before us are an accurate record of the meeting held by our predecessors. On this basis, and as no one has contacted either myself or the officers to raise any matters of accuracy, are we happy to adopt them as a true record? Thank you, members. I will sign the minutes at the end of the meeting. We will now move on to today's business. Agenda item 5 is a planning application which seeks permission for the construction of a new standalone 210-place teaching block and 30-place extension to existing preschool with associated car parking, hard and soft landscaping works. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to the following officers who are present to assist with any points of clarification. Andy Rutter, Development Manager, Bill Manning, Planning Officer, Ben Chester, Principal Transport Development Planner, and Jonathan Lockington, the Council's lawyer. I will now hand over to Billy to introduce the report and the tabled papers.
Thank you, Chairman, and good morning, everyone. So just to say, agenda item 5 is planning application SCC/0020/25MS, and this is at Thurston Church of England Primary Academy, located off Pondfield Road in Thurston, Suffolk, IP31 3FT. Just before I go through the presentation, I just want to make members aware that there have been 4 amendments to the committee report, and these have come in since the committee report was finalised. There should be a tabled paper, agenda item 5, in front of you. I won't read through it in detail. I'll provide a summary, and then I'll allow members a couple of minutes just to have a read through. I just want to make clear this doesn't change the officer recommendation of the report. So the first amendment is that Mid-Suffolk District Councillor Harry Richardson has provided a representation. This is to support the planning application. The second point is that Thurston Parish Council has made an additional representation, maintaining their objection on transport and highway safety grounds, and it also remains concerned about congestion, pedestrian and cycle safety, and the need for further mitigation. Thurston Preschool Limited has also made a representation. This is in support of the planning application. And then there is an amendment to paragraph 158, and this is just to add so the text refers to the Suffolk guidance for parking, which advises that schools should not provide parent parking, as this would conflict with travel plan aims. So yeah, I'll just allow members a minute or so just to have a look through at the full text, particularly from those representations.
I would just like to clarify at this point, Councillor Whittle has arrived in time for the presentation, and so will be able to partake with the debate and the vote later.
Okay, just continue with the presentation now. So just to clarify to members what planning application is for them today, this is a full planning application for the construction of a new standalone 210-place teaching block and 30-place extension to the existing preschool. This is with associated car parking, hard and soft landscaping works. This is the expansion of the existing Thurston Church of England primary school, and all this development is taking place within the existing school boundary, so there's no geographic extension to the school area. And then just to clarify the context of this site, so the existing primary school has capacity for 420 places and the preschool 30 places. So if members are minded to approve this application, the expanded primary school would have a total capacity of 630 places and the preschool a capacity of 60 places. The first plan shows the location, so that's the red line boundary, and then immediately to the north of this red line boundary, this dot shows the one objection. So we've had a single objection from one of the neighbouring residents. Just to provide some context of the location, so we're located within Thurston, sort of towards the northeast of Thurston, but obviously within the Thurston parish boundary. Immediately to the south of the school site is Norton Road, and then access to the school is provided off Pondfield Road. I'll go through the access details in a bit more detail shortly. The second plan is an aerial plan, just to show, again, the context of the school and the surrounding area. As members can see, towards the north, west and south of the site is and obviously a number of housing developments within the wider site. Just going through the plans of the preschool and then the primary school. So the first one is just showing the location of the preschool, as well as the floor plan. So again, this is an extension of the existing preschool in terms of the appearance and the design. It will be in keeping with the existing preschool, effectively doubling the number of places from 30 to 60. Just in terms of the context of the wider school site, this is located to the north of the existing primary school and then to the west of the preschool. Just beyond is Pondfield Road, which is the access to the school site. And then again, for the primary school, this is a two-storey expansion. This is a standalone building, so this is located sort of towards the south-east of the school site. It's a detached block from the main primary school, and then to the east of this extension area, there is going to be new hard-standing sport pitches, as these have to be relocated for the school expansion. And again, just for the primary school, these two images show the floor plan. So the photo on the left is taken of the ground floor, and then the photo on the right is taken from the first floor. Just to give some context to members, just going through the planning history of the site. In 2018, an outline permission was granted by Mid-Suffolk District Council for up to 200 homes and the primary school site. The homes was progressed as a reserve matters applications, but the primary school at the time wasn't progressed, and therefore in 2020 Suffolk County Council had the planning application for the school site that is obviously already there. So this was granted permission in 2021, and this was for the 420 place primary school and a 30 place preschool. At the time, this was a relocation of the existing Thurston primary school that, due to the development, particularly obviously housing within the Thurston area, wasn't going to meet educational needs, so a new site was identified to obviously meet the growth in pupil numbers. And while at the time this was for the 420 place primary school and 30 place preschool, the site was chosen and ample space provided for a future expansion, and this is the application before members today. So now I'm just going to take members through site photos obviously from around the existing school site. So the first two images are taken from within the school playing fields. So the photo on the left is just showing the existing outside area looking north towards the housing development, which is obviously already there. Just to obviously clarify to members that while this is an expansion of the primary school and preschool, it's taken in the context of an existing established school site. And then the image to the right is just the location of the existing primary school building, showing it's already obviously a two-storey existing primary school. Then these next two images again are taken from the playing field. The image on the left is again the existing primary school, and this shows the hard-standing access to the two-storey extension. So just to clarify that the two-storey extension is a standalone building, and pupils would access it across this existing hard-standing area. And then the photo on the right is looking towards where the extended car park will be located. Again, these next two images are taken from the school playing fields. The photo on the left shows the existing hard-standing sport pitches. This will be replaced by the two-storey building, the extension of the primary school, and then the photo on right is roughly where the new hard-standing courts will be relocated. Again, these next two images relate to the extension of the car park. So just I can show back on the plan, but these are located towards the south of the existing school site between the school and Norton Road. So yeah, the image on the left is the area where the extended car park will be located, and then the image on the right is the access from the main primary school car park, which will lead into the extended area. These next two images relate to the access to and from the site off Pondfield Road. The first image on the left is just the exit only, and then the image on the right is for the entrance to the school car park. Again, these two images relate to the access. The image on the left is the entrance to the school off Pondfield Road, and then the image on the right is looking along Pondfield Road towards Norton Road, and then Norton Road connects on to the rest of Thurston and beyond. And these next two images relate to the pedestrian access to the school site. The image on the left, that building immediately in front behind the bins is the preschool. And then just to clarify that the extension area of the preschool will be in front of that building, going slightly closer towards Pondfield Road. And then the image on the right is the main pedestrian access for the primary school. None of this is changing as part of this application before you. Again, these two images are taken within the school site, looking outside of the school towards Pondfield Road. And again, this is just to show the existing pedestrian access to the main school site, which won't be changed as part of this application. And then the image on the right shows the existing visitor and pedestrian, the visitor drop-off area, again, not changing as part of this planning application. And then the last two photos are just taken from Google Street View. This is just to provide some context of the wider area. So in this case is Norton Road. So the photo on the left is taken immediately south of the school. You can see these two warning signs, and that's just to indicate there is a zebra crossing there, and that crosses over into Pondfield Road. And then the photo on the right is taken from the southwest of the school. Again, that road immediately to the left is Pondfield Road, and that obviously leads into the main school site. And then the zebra crossing along Norton Road is just a little bit further up on that image on the right. In terms of representation, Thurston Parish Council has objected to the planning application, and we've also received one third-party objection, and one general comment has also been received. So just to summarise the material objections raised as part of this planning application, and obviously to say that the committee report goes into these in more details in terms of obviously the representations received both by the Parish Council and third party. So the material objections raised relate to highway safety and school time congestion, pedestrian and cycle safety, parking drop-off and pick-up impacts on Pondfield Road and nearby roads, adequacy of existing access, crossing and footway arrangements, and the need for further mitigation, including crossing improvements and an updated travel plan. Just going through the key material planning considerations, again, these are covered in more detail within the committee report. Obviously, the key point in this case is the principal development. There's the educational needs and obviously the need for expansion of pupil places, particularly in Thurston, due to ongoing housing development. Obviously, concerns raised relating to highway safety, traffic and parking, the design, scale and visual impact of the school expansion, impact on residential amenity, biodiversity net gain, ecology and landscape, playing fields and sports provision, and then heritage impacts as the school is in the setting of Manor Farmhouse, which is a Grade 2 star listed building, and then the associated Grade 2 farm buildings just located to the east of the existing school sites. Just going through some more of the key material plan considerations, just setting out that the Suffolk Guidance for Parking, version 4 October 2023, page 55 sets out that schools should not provide parent parking as this goes against travel plan objectives. And then paragraph 100A of the NPPF gives great weight to the need to create, expand or alter early years schools and post-16 facilities through the preparation of plans and decisions on applications. And then just to clarify, as set out in Appendix A, the list of recommended conditions for this application, this includes a travel plan which is being secured by condition to monitor and monitor school travel patterns. And again, just continuing with the key material planning considerations, particularly on the highways matters, obviously there is existing school time congestion at Pondfield Road and Norton Road, which is obviously caused by the existing primary school. And just to clarify that Thurston Parish Council objects on highway safety grounds and seeks further crossing, footway and access improvements. County Highways has reviewed the transport statement and has no objection to the proposed development. Additional car parking and cycle parking are proposed, but there is no proposed dedicated parent parking or drop-off. And this is in line with Suffolk Guidance for Parking. And then just again to clarify that a travel plan is being secured by condition. Just around this presentation off, the officer recommendation is that committee approves planning application SCC/0020/25MS for planning permission. This is subject to the conditions as set out in Appendix A of the report. And just to clarify to members, this application is at Thurston Church of England Primary Academy, located off Pondfield Road within the parish of Thurston, Suffolk, IP31 3FT. And this development being considered is for the construction of a new standalone 210-place teaching block and 30-place extension to the existing preschool with associated car parking, hard and soft landscaping works. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Billy. Members, do you have any questions of clarification for Billy? Councillor Welham.
Thank you, Chair. Could you clarify one or two aspects of the access to the school. I believe there's only one pedestrian access to the school, only one, and presumably cyclists would go in with the pedestrians. And there's one access for vehicular traffic. Do deliveries and visitors go in at the same access as the vehicular traffic? And a question on whether or not there is a footpath on Norton Road, which from the east leading to the zebra crossing. I mean, basically, how do children walk to school? Yeah. And I've got another question about a school travel plan after that.
Yeah, so I'll answer those questions first. Rebecca, you have to bring the presentation up. Thank you. So I'll answer your last question first in terms of Norton Road. So the photo on the left is taken from the south of the school site, and this is towards obviously the east of the Pondfield Lane, the access to the road. So there's no footpath along this area. The photo on the right, which is Norton Road from the southwest of the school site, just to the left of that photo, there is a footpath there. And just to clarify, hopefully, if I can bring this aerial plan is not obviously the clearest because it's taken out from obviously quite far away, but that zebra crossing along Norton Road immediately connects to the housing development to the south of the school site. So any pupils coming from this area, so let's say to the south and to the southeast, would be routed towards that zebra crossing, and then there would be a footpath there. But I say to the east of Norton Road, in relation to the school site, there is no pedestrian crossing. And then, if I can find and then in terms of access to the school site, the short answer is, yeah, there is a single pedestrian access and there is a single vehicle access. But in terms of vehicle access, there's a dedicated entrance and exit. So these aren't the same roads used, but they do both go onto Pondfield Road and then onto Norton Road. So any vehicles accessing the school site, so staff or deliveries, would use the same entrance and then the same exit from the car park. And then in terms of pupil access, this is also located off Pondfield Road, and again, there is a single access to the school site, and that was established as part of the planning permission granted in 2021, and there are no proposed changes as part of this application.
So cyclists, sorry to interrupt, cyclists would go in through that entrance, yeah. And there's cycle parking?
Yes, so there's existing cycle parking on the school site, and as part of this planning application, additional cycle parking is being provided. Normally, in most cases, obviously the school travel plan can set this out in more detail. Pupils would obviously, at this point, they would dismount off their bike and walk it into the relevant cycle parking.
You mentioned school travel plan. There is an existing school travel plan?
From the top of my head, I believe there is one conditioned as part of the original planning application, and then as part of this one, there is a new travel plan to take into account the increase in pupil numbers.
So I was going to ask about the monitoring of the existing school travel plan, but perhaps that's too much detail. I just wondered what percentage of pupils are walking or cycling to school? Because we've heard a lot about, from the parish council and others, about vehicular traffic. But it seemed to me from the map that there ought to be a lot of people walking or cycling. And so I wondered if that was the case, whether that was being monitored.
Yeah, so unfortunately I wouldn't know a number off the top of my head, but just to obviously clarify in terms of when the primary school was relocated within Thurston, obviously one of the reasons this location was chosen was because it was still obviously cyclable and walkable from the rest of the parish of Thurston.
If I may just come in there, Councillor Welham, we've got a representative from County Education. I think we might have the school here as well, but they might be able to advise later on when they give their speech about where the pupils come from, what routes they take, and kind of the percentage overall of walking versus scooting and cycling, I suspect.
Yeah, thank you. That's great. Thank you.
Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Chair. I've got one very specific question. There's mention of a raised table on Norton Road. Could you show me the location of that on the map?
Sorry, Councillor, I didn't quite hear you.
There's mention in the document about a raised table on Norton Road. Could you show us that on the map?
Yeah, sorry, and where is that in the committee report, just so I can...
It's where the parish council are discussing some of the mitigations that they were interested in seeing. Thank you. Can't find it yet.
Yeah, found it. Just give me a second to read through. Oh, yeah, I'll bring... Sorry, Becky, with my pencil, thank you. So unfortunately, I don't have a good photo, but my understanding, so these are obviously the comments taken from the parish council. My understanding is that the entrance to the Pondfield Road off Norton Road, there's obviously a raised access for, it's obviously partially to encourage vehicles to slow down.
Could you show us that on the map, please?
Yeah. So this is probably the clearest one. So to the, obviously you can see the red line boundary of the school site, and then to the southwest corner, so the bottom left, this is, so the Norton Road makes up the southern school boundary, and then Pondfield Road comes off Norton Road to the west of the school site. And obviously my understanding is obviously to slow vehicle traffic down entering Pondfield Road, it's slightly raised, and one of the suggestions for the parish raised by the parish council is for another zebra crossing to be added here, but just to clarify, this has not been included within the planning application.
Yeah, Councillor Mason, I think, as from what I understand, it's the junction of Pondfield Road and Norton Road where that raised table will be.
Okay, I do have some other questions, if you don't mind. Can you confirm precisely what elements of the school travel plan are actually legally enforceable? And what action could be taken if monitoring shows that targets are repeatedly missed or remedial measures are not implemented? So I know, you know, having been a teacher, I know that school travel plans are required, but good intent doesn't necessarily result in the results that that travel plan was aspiring to. So how can you characterise how enforceable that travel plan actually is? Thank you.
Yeah, I say that's a really good point, because as you're aware, obviously travel plans are used as a number of school sites. So obviously it is secured by condition. So let's say further information in terms of the travel plan is still required to be submitted. And obviously if they're in breach of any of those details, we can take enforcement action. Obviously the travel plan is a working document that is updated over time. And obviously it's ways to encourage more sustainable transport to and from the school. But of course, if there's significant breach of targets, as it is secured by condition, we could take enforcement action if it was expedient to do so.
Okay, could you just expand on that? So, for example, if a travel plan doesn't actually result in a reduction in car journeys, what is that enforcement action that you're talking about?
Yeah, if I just come in there. The overall aim isn't for the travel plan to reduce car journeys, because the Suffolk Parking for Guidance, as Billy mentioned earlier, already sets out that parking is not to be provided because it goes against sustainable travel aims. In terms of enforceability, as Billy set out, it is enforceable. We'd have to take a view if it was being breached, if it was in the public interest to serve notice on that. But it's a commitment from the school to provide documentation and to encourage the sustainable travel for their pupils. Does that answer your question?
Yes, I'll talk a little bit more on this in the debate part of the meeting, but that'll do for now. Thank you.
Councillor Ramsay, did you have a point?
Yeah, thank you. Where it pertains to the existing highways infrastructure, so what's there at the moment, the parish council's report...
Sorry to interrupt you, Councillor. Yeah, can you just move slightly closer to your microphone? Thank you.
Sorry, I do apologise. Thanks. Where it relates to the existing highways infrastructure and zebra crossings and pedestrian pavements, the parish council, in their reporting, it seems to cover the perceived hazards and associated risks to pedestrians and their suggested mitigations. Have any accidents actually been logged with the police, or any near misses reported to the parish councils or the schools that you feel have actually led to this perception of increased risk?
Yeah, from my knowledge, I'm not aware of any reports or accidents being taken. I don't know, Ben, if you have any. No, nothing else to add on that. But yeah, so yeah, my understanding is, yeah, there hasn't been anything since the school was built 5 years ago.
Councillor Molyneux, do you have a question?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Going from the report, am I right in assuming that we're under the 1,000 square metres that would mean it would have to be BREEAM standard?
So no, we are above 1,000 square metres, and I have covered this off in the committee report. Just say more for my own benefit, just to reference where it is. So from paragraph 175 of the committee report, I do set that out. So obviously the BREEAM very good or equivalent rating is taken from policy LB23 of the Baber Mid-Suffolk Joint Local Plan. So let's just say that's paragraph 175 of this committee report. The short answer is no, this development does not directly meet the BREEAM requirements. This is because no certificate has been provided. However, I've obviously set out in the committee report that sustainability measures, including the addition of solar panels, has been included as part of the planning application.
So sorry, just to clarify, yeah, because I'd zoned in on just above 171 with some of the submitted, which I think you were just referring to, design and access statement, which was including the sustainability strategy, and there looks like to be some great stuff in there. But my question was going to be, if it's not hitting that BREEAM very good, what is the alternative or equivalent standard that it would be hitting, as outlined with some of the measures that have been sort of put in 171?
Yes, so the short answer to that is obviously BREEAM is effectively a certification that the developer would need to apply for to confirm that obviously it meets a certain standard. In this case, this hasn't been done, so there is no specific rating or criteria, even equivalent of BREEAM, that has been provided. However, considering obviously what is being proposed and set out in the design and access statement, I'm of the view that sufficient mitigation sustainability measures are being provided, and while the development is not on the face of it in accordance with policy LP23 of the Baber Mid-Suffolk Joint Local Plan, there are still sufficient measures, and the development plan taken as a whole is overall in accordance with it, even though this specific policy requiring the BREEAM very good or equivalent isn't met.
Okay, thanks for that. It's just, with some of the quality assurances that you get with meeting that requirement, even though, as I say, in 171 there's plenty of great looking stuff, it would be nice to have an equivalent or some further clarification as to how all those requirements have been met.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions for Billy? Yes, Martin. Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Chair. Is this requirement, the policy not to provide parking, has that got statutory backing, or is that purely a Suffolk County policy?
So the Suffolk parking guidance is purely a Suffolk policy. So obviously district councils would also have to consider it with planning applications, and then highways colleagues who are consulted part of planning applications often reference this document. So it would be they would use it as part of their response to the planning application. So obviously for schools, as I've set out, the key point is that dedicated drop-off of parent spaces shouldn't be provided, but based on staff levels there should be X number of parking places provided, and then based on pupil levels there needs to be X number of cycle places provided.
Thank you very much. The kind of expression comes to my mind, sort of pursuit of the perfect can be the enemy of progress, really. And we've got some very real situations here where parents are having to drop their children to get to school and so forth. They might love to walk or cycle, but they don't have the time.
Councillor Robinson, sorry, is there a point of clarification for Billy?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Let me think how to clarify that. No, I think I'll wait for the moment. Thank you.
Are there any other questions of clarification for the officer? No? We'll now move on to the public participation session. I have received one request to speak on this item. Please can I invite the representative for the applicant, Ms Kelly Smith, to come forward to the public speaking table. Please turn on your microphone. You have 5 minutes to address the committee.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay? Yes, thank you. Right, good morning everybody. My name is Kelly Smith. I am here to represent Suffolk County Council, who is the applicant in this matter. I am the Programme Manager within the school's infrastructure team in Children and Young People's Services. Our team leads on the statutory work to ensure that Suffolk has sufficient primary and secondary school places. The approval of the application at Thurston Primary School would see the creation of one additional class per year group, so a further 210 places at the school, taking the school capacity to 630 places in total. In addition, it would see a further 30 nursery places available to families within the community. Thurston Church of England Primary School is an academy, and it's currently operated by Thedwester Academy Trust. The most recent Ofsted report rated the school as good. The nursery is operated by Thurston Childcare, who are a charitable organisation who are Ofsted rated outstanding. Thurston Childcare operate 2 sites across the village. One site is on the school primary. The school primary site for Thurston Childcare has a 30-place provision, and we are seeking to double this provision to 60 places. The school and nursery have a very strong working relationship. Children and families benefit from their co-location, which is particularly useful in supporting children preparing for and transitioning into school. The village of Thurston has a number of approved housing applications that are at various stages of completion. As such, the County Council has secured financial contributions from housing developers for the expansion of places on this site, enabling us to ensure the infrastructure of school places is provided and available to families across the school community. With the demand arising from housing growth, Thurston Primary is forecasted to require 508 primary school places by September 27, exceeding the number of places currently available. The delivery of this school expansion has been timed to support this growth, with completion of the new block planned ahead of September 27. This requires us to begin construction this September 26. This planning application was submitted in April 2025, prior to which we engaged with the school and the nursery in a series of meetings alongside the property and design teams at Concertus to agree the designs and plans. Suffolk County Council must ensure that the school meets the DfE's Building Bulletin 103 guidance, which sets out the school's spatial requirements, and that the preschool meets the statutory requirements for the early years foundation stage. Alongside this, we take on board the knowledge and experience that the head teacher and education leaders have in what they need to operate their school and their nurseries. An example of this at Thurston is the reception classes offer all the areas of learning across the 2 current classrooms. Therefore, the 3rd reception classroom needed to be co-located with doors linking the 3. We're grateful of the time that the school and nursery staff gave to provide this valuable insight. As Suffolk County Council has a responsibility to provide statutory school places, if we do not provide the additional places at Thurston by September 27, children from the local area are likely to be allocated places outside of the village. Longer travel distance are not compatible with supporting children's readiness to learn, and it would be the County Council that would be liable to cover the cost of any child who needs to be transported under the transport policy. This policy is based on nationally set criteria that obligates local authorities to provide transport over certain distances and where there is no safe walking route. It is our aim to ensure that schools are central to their communities. Thurston School is a great community asset, and children moving into newly built homes should have the opportunity to attend their local primary school alongside neighbours and form friendship groups. We do acknowledge the Parish Council's concerns in regard to transport and thank them for the time they've taken to meet colleagues to discuss their concerns further. We note and appreciate the Parish Council broadly supportive of additional places, but that they object on highway grounds. As applicants, we have undertaken a transport assessment to assess the likely impact of the development, and Highways have not objected to the scheme, having met representatives of the Parish Council. When planning essential school growth, the County Council acts proportionately. We feel we've balanced those responsibilities by making use of the current infrastructure as well as installing solar panels which will supply the school with electricity. We also provide biodiversity net gain in a way that's easy to manage for the school, such as through wildlife planting. Without approval of this application at today's committee, the County Council will not have sufficient places in Thurston to meet demand.
Thank you, Ms Smith. I do apologise for cutting in, but the 5 minutes
that's
is up.
fine.
I
My
do
time is
apologise.
up.
Thank you. Members, do you have any questions of clarification for Ms Smith? Please note, it's for clarification only. We'll enter into debate following this. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Chair. Could you talk a little bit about any discussions you might have had with the active travel team? The school numbers are going up by 50%. That means more traffic. So I have been working on projects across my area in Haverhill, where actually one of the schemes is a zebra crossing, an additional zebra crossing outside the school, and there's £14 million worth of funding available for improvements to improve safety and access to schools. So can you talk about any discussions you've had with the active travel team to maybe look at that raised table that I mentioned earlier to provide zebra crossing access there? Just any discussions you've had with that team. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. So we have consulted the active travel team. We didn't receive any comments back, but Ben Chester from Highways has met with the Parish Council and discussed some of the recommendations that the Parish Council put forward to see if any of them were viable.
Councillor Welham.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a couple of questions. One is about the numbers. I made a note here that pupil numbers or requirement will be 508 pupils. Is that in September 27?
That's correct, yes.
So in September 27, there are 122 spaces unfilled. Will people come from outside of the, it's not called a catchment anymore, but will people come from outside of Thurston in order to fill those 122 spaces? If they do, and the school becomes full, what happens then as more houses are built in Thurston, and even at 630, the school is full? Is there anything that can be done? I mean, I don't think there is, but to reserve spaces for Thurston people as new houses are built or as new children become of school age?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Welham. That's actually a really important question because it helps us to clarify how those places are allocated. So whilst we would, for efficiency reasons, always build one full-time equivalent block of places in one go, so all of those places, the capital delivery happens at once, we don't have to release all of those places at the same time. So we can manage those places from reception upwards. So new entries coming in, so you'd open, say, 30 places, you'd manage those entries in. If they have siblings, there might be some places in other year groups that they can access, but you don't make all of the full-time equivalent places open in one phase. That happens over a number of years.
Thank you. My other question is about the sports facilities. I read in 146, paragraph 146, the proposal would also include associated external play space, games courts and the like. Are these games courts going to be used by the community? So I was hoping you were going to say yes to that. So does that mean that there needs to be access to these games courts through an entrance of some sort outside of school hours? And so would the school gates be open for vehicular traffic for people? I mean, I don't know what the games courts would be, but I can imagine there might be space for a five-a-side football game, perhaps. And local football teams might use that for training. But is there going to be sort of fairly free access?
Yes, I can answer that point as well. So the school already have a number of community uses for their existing sports facilities. This application will enhance those facilities, so they'll have additional sporting facilities. They currently hire it out to various youth football teams. I think they've got under 10s, under 11s, etc. The local community play paddleball there, for example. So that access is already made available and will continue to do so.
And one last question. Is there a limit to the hours of use by community, outside bodies like five-a-side football teams and the like?
The Trust aren't planning on making it available for any longer than they do currently. I can't remember the exact hours of use, but I do believe it's referenced somewhere in the committee report. I'm looking at Billy. But it won't be extended. I think they're trying to achieve that balance of making their facilities available to the community without annoying the neighbours outside of those times.
Thank you very much.
So, sorry, just to interrupt, I can either pick up on the community use now or after you're done with points of clarification.
Yeah, if we can, we'll pick up with points of clarification first. Thank you. Councillor Molyneux.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks for your presentation. Just going back to what I brought up earlier, I was just wondering if there was a specific reason as to why the BREEAM criteria and the consequence assessor sort of didn't come into the application thus far. Cheers.
Thanks. So the building, I think as Billy touched upon, the building has been designed with a fabric first approach. So it is designed to have good thermal properties to help it in hot days like today, and obviously when we get cooler temperatures in winter. It achieves good air tightness and U values. Essentially, this is an expansion of an existing school. When the original school was built, it was before the cut-off where we were putting air source heat pumps, etc., in all of our schools. So this has to make use of some of the facilities that were already oversized. So, for example, the boiler room that was already oversized, ready for this 630 expansion in the main school. So it's just about taking that balanced approach with the funding that's available to us to ensure that we achieve the best building we can for the funding available to us.
And is it the case then that because it is an extension, as you say, and they're already sort of pre-existing sort of factors, that then that sort of interrupts the sort of policy requirement for the BREEAM sort of criteria?
I couldn't comment on the policy requirement. I don't know if you can, Billy.
Yeah, I've written some notes down, so I'm happy to clarify those points after any points of clarification.
Councillor Ramsay.
Thank you. With meeting BB 103, particularly with regard to the site area in Part B. Is the school, I'm trying to get an idea of the scale, is the school considered a constrained site, or was it possible to meet the breakdown for the various categories? Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Ramsay. So this site was secured. So Thurston Primary School used to be on a site next to the church, elsewhere in the village. That was a very constrained site, so the school was relocated and expanded to 420 back in 2021, and that site was secured in the knowledge that we knew it was going to need to expand to 630. So the site that was secured was sized sufficiently for a 630 primary school and for a 60-place nursery. So even with expanding that provision, we have sufficient land in the various categories of BB103.
Are there any more points of Councillor Bains?
Morning. Can you just clarify if at the moment there's any provisions for, I'm not sure what the proper terminology for it is, so somebody assisting the children getting to school wearing a high-vis vest with a stop sign. Is that provision already there, or has that been looked at?
Thank you, Councillor Bains. If you're referring to a traffic patrol officer, so an actual paid role, no, there isn't somebody currently within that role. Ben, I believe that was looked at and the school doesn't meet the criteria, is that correct? Yes, so it doesn't meet the criteria.
Yes, that was assessed during the planning consultation period. The school crossing patrol manager went out to the site and reviewed it and decided that it didn't actually meet the criteria for that.
Thank you.
Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Chair. It was made mention earlier that there wasn't a response from the active travel team, and yet I'm now hearing that it didn't make the criteria for a crossing patrol. So can you just characterise that criteria and which highways part of the team made that determination? Thank you.
I'm happy to pick that one up now. Or, yeah. So separately from the planning application, at the same time, the Thurston Parish Council has been engaging with Suffolk County Council. So not obviously both from the existing school, because obviously that's already operational, and the parish council have already picked up and identified issues. So they'd already been engaging with the active travel team within Suffolk County Council, and obviously with the planning application coming through at the same time, that obviously this has spurred on the parish council to obviously make more engagement with them. So these points have effectively come up separately to this planning application, particularly around the existing school site and the existing issues of the parish council has identified. So obviously there's been conversations back and forth with them, not obviously directly related to this planning application, and the current conclusions were the fact that no immediate, no dedicated traffic control person or zebra crossing was required at this stage. And then separately, as part of this planning application, a transport statement has been provided, and I've had discussions with the parish council and with Suffolk County Council's Highways Authority, and compared to the existing situation, no new measures, including additional zebra crossings, are required to make this development acceptable in relation to highways.
Councillor Welham.
Thank you, Chair. I've now got two more questions, sorry. One is, could I ask about the dropping off of disabled pupils? Is there special provision for A, dropping off disabled pupils, and B, disabled parents dropping off their sons and daughters? And the other question is going to be, I'm afraid, around school crossing patrols, because I was school crossing patrol manager for Essex some years ago, and one of the things that we found was if a new school were built, the best way to get people walking It is, yeah, it is going to be, yeah. The best way to get pupils walking to school from day one. So my question is around two questions. One is, did the assessment, how was the assessment of the extension taken into account? I can understand the school crossing manager going out and assessing what was happening, but how did they then show that that assessment was still valid with 50% more pupils? Hopefully. Oh, sorry. Oh, right. Sorry. Sorry. I'm sorry about that. No, that was it. That was about the dropping off.
Shall I answer the accessible parking question? Yep. So, Councillor Welham, there is accessible parking on the site. So, yes, if you required to be, if you required a space close to the school for accessibility reasons, then that can be provided. There is one there.
So that would be for disabled parents attending, say, assemblies or school concerts. They will be sufficient, but also for general use on school days.
So yes, they would have an arrangement with the school. Lots of schools make that available to parents by prior agreement, if needed.
So it's not marked out as a disabled space?
Yes, there'd be accessible spaces, but yes, it would be done via prior arrangement so that, you know, it wasn't misused and other people weren't using it.
Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Chair. I believe Councillor Welham said there was 120 spaces currently available. I may have misheard him, but I've had a quick look and see if Google's anything to go by. There's something like 84 spaces at the moment. You said that we have to do this basically quite urgently, otherwise we're going to need to, possibly the council will need to pay for students to be transported to other locations. When is the current capacity actually going to be completely consumed by?
Thank you, Councillor Robinson. So for this coming September, the school will have 60 arrivals. So they have a planned admission number of 60 reception pupils each year. And because the school moved in 2021, they've been gradually releasing those spaces year on year. So they may have some spaces available in one of the higher year groups, but they will fill their reception places this year. So if you were to move into the area midway through the year, there may not be a reception place available to you, although the school have considered over-admitting temporarily if it were one or two pupils, knowing that the expansion is being built.
I have a supplementary question, Chair. So has anything that happened in the growth of the student population taken you by surprise? Is it happening? When was the original date to do this extension?
So we've been planning this extension since 2024. Ideally, we would be on site about now, but we've been working in order to clarify all of our points to present an acceptable planning application, and therefore our deadline is September 27. That's when we're going to have insufficient reception class places.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for the public speaker for clarification? No? Thank you. I'll now invite Billy to respond with any points raised.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I've written 3 points just to clarify on, and apologies if I've missed anything else from members, and obviously feel free to ask me anything else. So the first point I've got on is the community use of the sport pitches. So just to say that Sport England is a statutory consultee for these sort of applications, and within their response, obviously they've got no objection to proposed development, and one of their requested conditions was a community use agreement. So that's, I think, condition number 20. As Kelly's already elaborated on, there is an existing situation with the school, but obviously this will be expanded on. So that is condition 20, and that's a community use agreement. And in terms of operating hours, our noise consultants requested the submission of a MUGA noise report. So MUGA just stands for multi-use game area. So this is the, in this case, the 2 new hard-standing sport pitches. And within that report, they do set out operational hours. If members want the exact thing, I can provide that. But just to clarify that they will be used as currently. So there's, they're not proposing to use them any later than they're currently permitted on site. And then second point I've got just going on the BREEAM rating. So again, obviously that's mentioned within policy LP 23 of the Bain Mid Suffolk Joint Local Plan. Obviously it is a policy requirement, and as I've already set out, this development doesn't meet it. It's not uncommon with school sites, and again, it's not obviously not to defend them, but just to state that obviously they do have set criteria set out by DEFRA they must follow, and obviously this affects things like funding, and as obviously it's not currently a requirement in terms of the DEFRA side to incorporate the BREEAM rating, as part of development, and then obviously, once it gets to planning stage, it's for myself as the officer to assess whether, that's still acceptable, and in this case, as I set out, the measures what are being proposed overall are acceptable, and obviously that's why this application is being recommended for approval. And then the third point I had was on the school crossing measures and obviously access arrangements to the site. As already mentioned, a transport statement is submitted to support the planning application, and obviously this includes things, traffic surveys, obviously based on existing levels, and then obviously what they forecast, the expansion would add, in particularly in terms of pupil numbers, and the conclusions of this report effectively set out that the current arrangements to and from the site, as they already are in place, are sufficient to meet this expanded area, and so that therefore the statement set out, no further recommendations were required, and obviously this has been reviewed by Highways, who have no objection to the development.
Thank you, Billy. Members, are there any further points of clarification for either the planning officer or indeed Highways?
If I may.
Yes, Councillor Rowan.
The point that I got halfway through raising about how the school crossing patrol manager's assessment was done, the assessment was done on a particular day, I guess, with whatever traffic was moving along the road past the point where the crossing patrol was being considered and the number of people crossing at that point. If the number of people crossing at that point were to increase by 50%, do we know whether then the school crossing patrol could be justified?
Obviously, if you stated, you're aware that obviously surveys are carried out within the current situation, and obviously on the face of it, there's a 50% increase in places. Obviously, they do forecast to assuming that there is a 50% increase, and let's say that the expansion of the school is considered within the transport statement. Obviously, that's what it's there for. It's not just, obviously, in terms of the findings, that's using the existing figures, but in terms of the assessment and looking if any improvements are needed, takes into account the forecast, maximum capacity of the school as set out in this application. And let's say within the transport statement, they've considered this, and there's no further improvements recommended.
Are there any other questions? No? Thank you. I will now open the debate. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Chair. This is a good news story. It's about school expanding. It's about meeting pupil numbers, the pressure on pupil numbers. And I think the plans for development are certainly positive going forward. I'm minded to, in meetings every once in a while, you'll hear me say it multiple times, say that I was a teacher for 33 years. So I have done school crossing patrols. I've had the walkie-talkie, and I've done it in rain, sun, snow, all the conditions imaginable. As a teacher, I'm immensely frustrated with the restrictive guidance and policy regarding school drop-off zones, because I don't think it matches real life, and the fact that many parents are busy and have to drop off their children as they then race off to work. And the aspiration, absolutely, of having the most amount of children walk to school or cycle to school is definitely something we should be aiming for. But I do not feel that necessarily policy and practice born on 33 years of experience of working at schools actually match. Now, today is not a place to debate policy, and I understand that, and I think that is a discussion maybe at another time in a different meeting. But I find it really quite troublesome that the Active Travel Team, which is a Suffolk County Council body, did not respond to the applicant. And for us to say that the Parish Council is continuing those conversations with the Active Travel Team, for me, is a little bit of a sop as a missed opportunity to actually build in measures. The decisions we make today are long-lasting. And I think the pressures that Thurston Primary School, for Thurston Parish Council, Councillor Otten, who is the local county councillor there, Councillor Bradbury, one of the district councillors there, those concerns aren't going to go away. And they're going to feel quite separate and quite powerless to the decisions that county council make to concerns that they already have. I don't think those concerns are going to go away. In my inbox, because I don't delete emails, I must have many, many, many dozens of correspondence from residents. What can you do to improve safety outside school? The increase in numbers of children, especially of lower school age, is going to increase the number of vehicles visiting that site. Many parents of young children often have more than one young child, and they have babies in child seats. And the high likelihood of increased traffic, of also increased pedestrians. I think for not to have a response from Active Travel Team is troublesome for me. And I support this application, but I worry that a proper assessment hasn't been made from a team that can actually assuage many of the fears of that parish council. And I'm not quite sure why it couldn't have been included in the application. Thank you.
If I just clarify a point, I've just been having a look on our system. There is a response from Active Travel England, the government body, who comment on this sort of application, who had no comment. The school and education may have tried to engage with our internal Active Travel Officer and may not have received a response. However, there has been correspondence between the County Transport Strategy Team and the Active Travel Officer, hence why the assessment of the school crossing patrol was taken place. That was through the Active Travel Officer. So the Active Travel Officer from the planning side has fed into the county highways response, but did not provide, I believe, a standalone response. It's embedded within the county highways response. So there has been some comments through the planning side, but recognising that may not have come through the school side as well.
Thank you, Andy. Are there any other members who wish to enter debate? Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I have similar concerns to those of Councillor Mason. I would have liked to have asked for some kind of postponement so that we could debate these issues about access to the school and travel, but I realise that there isn't time. Time is not on our side. So is it possible to include some sort of conditions to this application, that certain things that don't appear to have been done, or if they have been done, they've not come to this committee, could be seen as a requirement of going along with the bill? Is there any possibility of that? Such as the crossing, such as proper, thorough surveys, and a commitment that if we find that, irrespective of the Suffolk policy, we find that really some kind of pick up and drop off facilities provided, that it would be provided in the future. Is any of that a possibility?
We're here at the committee today presenting the item because between ourselves in planning and County Highways and other consultees believe the application is all in order. It's in the space where it needs to be determined. There is an 82-page transport assessment that has been provided at, I assume, probably a significant cost with this application, assessing all of the issues you've just raised. With over and above, there's been meetings between Billy, County Highways and Thurston Parish Council. There's been school crossing patrol surveys taking place. From our side, there is nothing more that can be done. That we consider the application to be in line with local and national planning policy in terms of highways, having safe, suitable access, that's the utmost concern to us all. There is safe and suitable access to users of the site. It's been demonstrated by the applicant that there is. The expansion won't lead to any additional concerns. So is there anything further to do on this in terms of highways from a technical and officer point of view? The answer is no.
Thank you.
Councillor Welham.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for that clarification. That is really helpful. First, yes, it's good to see that we're likely to get a very high-quality school extension in a place where it's desperately needed, and it will become very attractive to people, not just within the village, but also in the surrounding area. But much must be done to get pupils walking to school, and I understand we can't make this a condition, but I would. It's a shame that we haven't heard from the school, because I think there is more that could be done in discussions with the school. For instance, I would have asked, does the school have a team of junior road safety officers, because they are very helpful in seeing to encouraging safety around schools. Is there a walking bus? Is there a site for a start of a walking bus? Do they use park and stride? There's all these sorts of things, and which I would have liked to have heard about, but clearly we haven't had that discussion between the county's active travel team and the school, or if they have had that, we haven't had it reported. But I can't ask for it to be a condition, but can we have a side note that we want to encourage these sorts of measures to be considered by the active travel team with the school and with the parish council? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Welham. Yes, we can absolutely add a side note to that effect. Councillor Molyneux.
Thanks ever so much. Yeah, I'd like to echo what's already been said about, this is a good news story. It's a school, taking on extra capacity, no doubt, to sort of take on extra development will be happening in the area. Sticking point, I also echo, just about the provision for, active travel. It seems a little bit sort of unclear as to how that's being sort of met, for the concerns of the parish council. But then, yes, going back to my point of the BREEAM requirements with the policy, as I say, it looks great, some of the things that have been included in 171, and it sounds very reassuring, fabric first approach, and there's always the thing about solar panels being such a focal point. But for me, as I say, there's that quality assurance that comes with BREEAM, and at the moment it's a little bit blurry in terms of our planning officers, because I know at district it's always an issue where planning officers have to cover a huge amount. And whenever we talk about standards, it's always a default looking to building control for covering that area. Because obviously, as I say, there's already a full plate that planning officers have to take on. So for me, and I have sort of few doubts that it's going to be a good standard project. For me, it feels like we do need sort of building control to also give that assurance that what has been done is translating some of the things that are required from the BREEAM sort of policy requirements. So I'm not sure if that's something that we can sort of require or sort of go over in terms of building control, giving those assurances. But for me, that's the main sticking point, as I say, just that blurry sort of translation as to what the policy requirements are to us, sort of saying, yeah, I think it's actually sort of all right.
Yeah, if I just clarify, building control is separate regulations, so it's not something we can consider through the planning process. Obviously, the applicant has to conform with both sets, so in terms of planning legislation and building control legislation. BREEAM is going to be something that obviously the committee are interested in, and it's going to come up quite often with developments like this. There is a cost associated to having BREEAM assessed on schools. It's not something that falls within the county policy, that the schools or the education teams undertake these BREEAM assessments. So that's just for future reference. But in terms of building control, obviously there's certain standards which the school will have to meet and regulations they'll have to meet for building control, but that's not something we can consider here as we're in a different regime, we're in planning.
And so I guess the reassurance is that this has gone through district, and district were happy that this was sort of fulfilling the requirements of the policy. As I say, it's just that area of quality assurance and having sort of professional oversight on it. So it's not just an idea that, okay, that we've got some solar panels, I think that sort of like ticks that box. And I don't think that that's what's happened, but I wouldn't like this to be a precedent, having not known sort of what the approach has been in the past, sort of in this environment, to BREEAM sort of as a policy requirement not being fulfilled. So I can take some assurance, as I say, that it's gone through district. However, yeah, as I say, I wouldn't want it to be a precedent that all of a sudden it's like, okay, we can just overlook it because there's a solar panel on the building.
Yeah, just to clarify that point, so yeah, I can confirm that Mid-Suffolk District Council, so their planning team, was consulted as part of this planning application, and they raised no concerns or, you know, in terms of any of their policies. Obviously, it's myself, or, you know, Suffolk County Council as a determining authority to considering the, you know, the relevant policies from the relevant development plans, and I've set that out within the committee report. And yeah, in terms of the BREEAM, it's something I've considered as part of policy LP23. And while, because no BREEAM certificate has been provided, you know, in terms of black and white, it hasn't met the full requirements of the policy, I'm content with the measures being proposed as part of development are sufficient, and obviously overall that the development is in accordance with the development plan.
Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to explore a condition, if you may, and that is to request Suffolk County Council to conduct a review of a travel plan, the effectiveness of a travel plan 6 months after the construction has been completed and the school is up to number, and also that there should be a renewed travel assessment from the active travel team, because you never know in advance what it's going to end up looking like after completion in terms of the safety. And I think to offer some concerns to the parish council and the councillors who have raised objections, I think an assessment, a review of the implementation of the travel plan and the safety arrangement, you know, what it's like on the ground, to have the active travel team to look at that with a view for mitigations. And the reason I say that is I don't think I can object to this application, either A, on policy, because policy is policy, or B, on the expert advice of a highways current assessment, but I would like reassurance that assessment could take place 6 months after the opening of the building.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. I'm happy to clarify that, and I hope there's already a condition in place to address that, but please correct me if I'm wrong. But condition 17 is for a travel plan. I won't read out the whole condition because it's quite long, but just to clarify, so that's required to be done prior to the first occupation of the building, and then there is a commitment to undertake a baseline review within the first autumn term of the building being used, and then Point D of the condition requires an annual monitoring review and uploaded monitoring information in accordance with the travel plan to be reviewed by the local planning authority, and then this travel plan must be monitored for a minimum of 5 years after the baseline survey. So that's already included.
Can I just have clarity? So the travel plan, does that also include an assessment of mitigation measures that might be needed to make sure that safety is being considered?
No, that doesn't, because this is obviously something that we would require prior to termination, and that's why the transport statement has been submitted to support the planning application. And effectively the conclusions of that are no additional infrastructure is in the case of, say, a zebra crossing is required for this development.
So I'm just trying to pin down. So you think that it's not appropriate then for me to ask that the active travel team do an assessment because you're saying it's built into that existing condition?
No, so I'm saying that the requirement to carry out a travel plan is there as a condition, but that's in relation to obviously how pupils move to and from the site. That condition doesn't require a survey to decide if any new infrastructure, for example, is required.
And that's what I'm asking for, whether we can condition that as an assessment going forward.
Yeah, I can let Andy, but just to say effectively no, because we would have to consider the impact, because for example with an additional zebra crossing, this would be outside the red line boundary, for example, but I'm sure Andy can clarify.
Yeah, thanks. Billy's completely right. There's kind of two strands there you're asking for. The first strand in terms of the travel plan and regular review, I think we've got that covered off adequately in condition 17. The second part is an almost, okay, well, can we put a condition on to say if something happens unexpectedly, can there be another review of the school crossing patrol? That's not something we could condition because it's not specific enough to an actual event that has taken place, for example. It wouldn't meet the 6 legal tests required. But what we can do is we can include a note at the end of the permission that sets out what the process can be for certain people to lobby, maybe the parish council to lobby the active travel team or the school to have a further assessment taken place in due course. But I don't think it's required for us to make the development acceptable because it's already been demonstrated by our highways team that there aren't going to be any safety impacts from the scheme.
I would be in favour of that note being added, though.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Molyneux. Sorry, Councillor Welham.
Thank you, and thanks for a bit of clarification around condition 17. It's unclear to me who is responsible for monitoring, for checking the school travel plan and approving it in the first instance, and for monitoring, because there's reference to county planning authority and also to the local planning authority. And it says there the travel plan must be monitored for a minimum of 5 years after the baseline survey, which is fine, and it's being reviewed by the local planning authority, but it has to be approved by the county planning authority. How does that work? Is it not approved? Does it not need to be approved in the first instance also by the local planning authority?
Sorry, just to clarify that in terms of the wording, it should all be the county planning authority, so as ourselves as Suffolk County Council as the planning authority for the school. So it would be, so in terms of that condition, obviously it's further information is required to discharge it, so that would be submitted by the applicant, and then that would be submitted to Suffolk County Council as the planning authority, and then obviously myself as an offerer or someone else would then consult with the active travel team at Suffolk County Council, who would obviously then provide comments to ourselves as officers, and obviously if there was sufficient information at the time, then that condition could be discharged, but obviously there would be the ongoing monitoring required for a minimum of 5 years. So it is, to clarify, it's not for Mid-Suffolk, it is for Suffolk County Council as the planning authority.
And I'll just clarify, if members wish to update that condition, so it's reflected, taking out the word local and putting in county, that would be conditions 17, A, D and E. So that's within your gift to update that, or update that through, if you're minded to grant planning permission, that can be part of your proposal.
Thank you, that is helpful. I think that needs to be done because there is a reference to the local planning authority elsewhere, being Mid-Suffolk. So we do need, in I think it's D and E, to have. Well, I'm happy as far as I can be with the application as it stands. So would it help if I proposed the recommendation that...
I think Councillor Mason had another point.
Thank you, Chair. And funnily enough, I was going to just make the proposal, but I'm happy to second if Councillor Welham wants to. So, subject to the conditions just agreed, with the additional note made, I'm supportive of this application, notwithstanding my concerns regarding policy, which is for another day. And but yeah, I think possibly we've exhausted and should proceed. So if Councillor Welham is happy to propose, I'm happy to second. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Welham, earlier on you asked about a note about the school crossing patrol. Did you want that included as well?
Yes, a note about a meeting with active travel, and also to reassess the school crossing patrol when the school is full. Yeah, thank you. But I think they would probably do that anyway. I mean, from my experience with a new school, once you see how it's operating and it gets full, you go along and do another count. So I don't think it's too onerous a task. Thank you.
Yes, it will be just a note as opposed to a condition. Thank you. Councillor Molyneux?
Yeah, just going back to the local plan policy, BRIAM. Is there potential for an expert in the field to provide the quality assurance, if not for this application, for future, or is this when I'm going into sort of policy sort of discussions rather than just for this application? Because, as I say, it's the policy of the local plan at district level, and it feels still that there's not been sufficient enough translation between, what that quality assurance is and somebody saying, actually, yeah, bam, 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 this is actually fulfilling that. I'd still like some kind of future assurance, if not assurance here, that someone else has looked at it to make sure that it translates.
So that would be, all I can advise is that would be for you to pick up with our education colleagues. It's up to them whether that assessment is done in terms of comparing it to BRIAM. It's not something, as I stated earlier, I believe is necessary to make the development acceptable in this case. But yeah, I'd point you towards our education colleagues on that one.
That'd be fantastic, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Welham, I think you said earlier you were happy to propose the application.
Yes, Chair, I would like to propose that we accept this application subject to that change in condition 17, and also the side notes that we have discussed. Thank you.
And Councillor Mason, are you happy to second that? You said
Happy
earlier?
to second, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, if there are no further comments, I will now confirm the proposal before us to approve the application for planning permission subject to the conditions set out in Appendix A. It has been proposed by Councillor Welham and seconded by Councillor Mason. We will now move to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hands. That is unanimous. Therefore, the motion is carried. Would members like to have a brief comfort break, and officers as well, before we move on to the second application? Yep. Okay. If we can reconvene here at 10 minutes, 11:40, please. Thank you. Agenda item 6 is a planning application which seeks to vary condition 8, public right-of-way, of planning permission SCC/0072/16W/VOC, a variation of a review of old minerals permissions for the extraction of minerals. I'll now invite Billy Manning to introduce the report.
Thank you again, Chairman. So this is agenda item number 6, which is the second application and planning application before you today, and the reference number is SCC/0072/16W/VOC2, and this is located at Gislam Brick and Pipe Works, Brickworks Lane, Gislam, Suffolk, NR33 8DS. As the Chairman stated, this is a Section 73 application, and this is to amend conditions for application SCC 0072/16W/VOC, and then the application seeks to vary Condition 8, which relates to public rights-of-way, Gislam Footpath 4. I'm just going to go through the site area and the objections we've received for this planning application. So this red line boundary shows the site boundary for the quarry site. I've got another plan later on that shows the phasing of extraction, which doesn't cover the complete red line boundary area. The hatched sort of purpley pink line that you can see to the west of the red line boundary and cutting into the red line boundary are public rights of way in the area. And again, I'll go into them in a little bit more detail as this relates to condition 8. Hopefully you can see there's a black dot sort of towards the middle of the plan, sort of more to sort of the northeast of the site. So this is along where the access to the site is. So we have received 5 third-party objections to this application, and they're all at the same address, so that's why there is only a single dot shown. But just to confirm that we have received 5 third-party objections to this planning application. The second plan just shows the aerial view of the site. Just to clarify, obviously this plan is outdated as there has been quarrying operations taking place, so there would be greater extraction than shown in the plan currently. Again, this is just going back to public rights of way, so this time without the objectors, just to make councillors aware that Gislam Footpath 4 cuts within to the site along the access and then into phase 3, and again I'll go into that in more detail. This one just shows the phasing plan of the site. So the phasing order was actually varied last year, so that was granted permission in 2025, and again that didn't seek to increase the extraction area, it just sought to amend the phasing order, and then the application today doesn't change that phasing order, it's just the public rights of way in relation to phase 3. So just to give members a context of the planning history of the site, in 2016 a review of the old mineral permission, referred to as a ROMP, was carried out at the site. This was a requirement under the Environment Act 1995 as part of the first periodic review at this site. So the site has operated previously, and just to clarify that the ROMP application does not seek planning permission, but is a way to add modern planning conditions required for the site to comply with. This ROMP was granted permission in May 2016, and then subsequently it was varied last year, and this was to amend the phasing order of on-site operations. Just to clarify what the process of a Section 73 application is. So permission granted under a Section 73 application takes effect as a new independent permission to carry out the same development as previously permitted, subject to new or amended conditions. So in this case, Condition 8 is being amended. Just to clarify to members that the extant permissions and this application have the same end date, which is the 31st of December 2033, and this is not being proposed to change as part of the current application. And again, just to clarify, this application does not seek to amend the phasing order on site or expand the extraction area. So as I've already discussed, this Section 73 application is in relation to Condition 8. So currently Condition 8 states that no operation shall commence within Phase 3 until public footpath Gislam 4 has been diverted in accordance with an approved diversion order. The applicant has submitted an application to vary Condition 8, and the new proposed wording as set out in Appendix A states that no operation shall take place within Phase 3 unless a temporary crossing point for public footpath Gisborne 4 has been established in accordance with the drawing, which is on the list of approved documents, and then the temporary crossing point shall be retained and maintained until such time as public footpath Gisborne 4 has been formally diverted and a diversion is available for public use. Just on the diversion order, that is a separate process, so it's committee members today aren't considering the diversion order, and that's a formal process carried out by the Public Rights of Way team at Suffolk County Council, and that is in the process of being carried out. And again, this planning application is not considering the diversion order, it's just considering the temporary crossing point across where the internal access roads for the quarry meets Gisborne footpath 4. The diversion order is a separate process to this. So now I'm just going to take members through some of the photos from the site and the surrounding area just to give some context. So these first two photos show the private road, which is the access of Church Road, and then Church Road itself, I can go back to the plans, provides access about 1.2 kilometres away to the A12, and this is the current access used by vehicular traffic, getting to and from the site. And just to confirm that there's no proposal to change access arrangements as part of this application. And again, this is just off Brickworks Lane, and then the photo on the left is actually the site access, so that'll be where HGVs go to and from the site to access the relevant phases for mineral extraction. These next two photos just are taken within the main site, and again, the vehicle access all takes place through here to get through to the other phases of the site. These next two photos just show the footpath for it. So the photo on the left is a private access road for a couple of homes that are down here. This is not used by vehicular access in the quarry site. The access to the quarry is a little bit further north, forward as you look at the photo on the left. And then the photo on the right is just taken of the existing location of the footpath, and then behind that is the crossing point, and I've got a couple of photos for, and then that leads into phase 3 of the quarry site. So this is the crossing point of Gisborne footpath 4, where the internal access roads of the quarry site enters into phase 3. So the photo on the left is just taken obviously within the access track that vehicular traffic accessing phase 3 of the quarry would use, and then that's looking back at the field, this field here to the right, and then that eventually takes you in towards Gisborne, and then the access track to the main quarry site. And then the photo on the right is just the crossing point from the other side, and then that field is the continuation of the Gisborne footpath 4. Just to show members where this is in context to the wider quarry site, hopefully that sort of blue dot between phase 2 and phase 3 is clear enough. That's just the approximate location of the pedestrian crossing. And again, just to clarify that vehicular traffic for the quarry would go through phase 2 to get into phase 3, whereas pedestrians using the footpath would approximately follow the southeastern boundary of the quarry, so outside the quarry site, to obviously use the footpath, and then obviously come into contact with the internal roads of the quarry at that crossing point. And again, just showing the approximate location of the crossing. This is just in the context of the Public Rights of Way network, just to show how Gisborne footpath 4 feeds into this crossing point, and then the wider quarry site. So just going into some context with the crossing at Gisborne footpath 4. So this application does not seek approval for a formal diversion of Gisborne footpath 4. That's a separate application currently being processed by the Public Rights of Way team. So as set out in the second bullet point, this is a separate legal process. This Section 73 application relates to the wording of Condition 8, as I've already set out, and it's set out in the officer report, and then obviously the management of the crossing point. And just obviously as set out within the planning application, the proposed arrangements include controls for vehicle movements along the crossing of the footpath, and obviously the key planning issues is whether the revised condition would still provide acceptable public safety and access arrangements while the diversion process is being progressed. In terms of representations to this planning applications, there's been 5 third-party objections, and then just to say that there is no objections from statutory consultees, including Gislam Parish Council. In terms of the material objections to this planning applications, unsurprisingly, these are focused on the public rights of way and the safety in terms of the public safety and amenity for public rights of way users, potential conflict between public rights of way users and the operational traffic within the quarry, the adequacy of the proposed temporary crossing and alternative route options, and then dust and amenity impacts. In terms of the key material planning considerations of this application, I'd just like to clarify to members that this is an established quarry site with an extant permission, and this variation relates to condition 8, which is on public rights of way. So the key material planning considerations are the public rights of way and safety, with users in terms of safety and usability, highway safety and HGV movements, dust, noise and amenity impacts, the heritage impacts as there is a grade 2 listed building within the site, and then the need for the mineral supply and continued extraction, as this at the moment is contributing to the materials to the Ben Acre and Kessingland flood risk management projects. So the recommendation by officers is that committee approves the Section 73 application, which is SCC 0072 16W VOC2, subject to the conditions as set out in Appendix A. And just to remind members, this application is at Gislam Brick and Pipe Works, Brickworks Lane, Gislam, Suffolk, NR 33 8DS. And then the Section 73 application is a variation of Condition 8, which is a public right-of-way condition, and that's of planning permission SCC 0072 16W VOC, and that was a variation of the review of old minerals permission for the extraction of minerals. Thank you.
Thank you, Billy. Members have the opportunity now for questions of clarification. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Chair. For me, this seems like a pretty straightforward application. I do have some questions regarding the footpath diversion. Do we have a programme for the completion of that diversion? That's the first question.
No, there is no, so that's in process with the public rights of way team, but there's no, it has to be done by a certain date or anything like that.
Okay, so my follow-up then is, why in the application then do we not have a long stop date to prevent a temporary crossing ending up being a almost permanently temporary crossing? And if not a long stop date, there may be a fixed review point so that the temporary arrangement cannot continue indefinitely. Why wasn't that tightened up? Because there is a danger, of course, that this temporary crossing could end up being almost permanently temporary.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, and if committee members do, that's something we can look at. But just in terms of clarifying that, obviously the quarry itself isn't a permanent position. Obviously, the end date is 2033. So obviously, in terms of that, it wouldn't be able to continue along that point. But as I say, the process to do the formal diversion order is currently in process with the public rights of way team.
So, Chair, just come back. I'm not unfortunately able to stay for the debate, so I'll leave it for other members if they wanted to take that point forward. As I say, the concerns regarding the word temporary actually meaning temporary, and whether that could be tightened up as part of a future condition to be discussed later. But thank you.
Councillor Welham.
Thank you, Chair. Can I ask a question about the status of Brickwork Lane and whether any of Brickwork Lane has the footpath rights upon it, or whether they're side by side, and whether there's any point where there is there's vehicular traffic, lorries and the like, on some or all of the footpath route.
Thank you. So yes, this will be the clearest plan. So just to provide some context to the access of the site, towards sort of the northeast of the red line boundary, you can see the public rights of way line, and this leads directly onto Church Road, and then Church Road leads onto the A12. and then the footpath comes off Church Road, and that is Brickworks Lane itself, so that is shared with access to the site, so it is used by vehicle and traffic. As part of the application variation from last year, a temporary movement of the footpath was provided into the neighbouring field.
Right.
So that is just a temporary measure, and that application was done by the Public Rights Away team. That does have an end date, unfortunately I don't know off the top of my head, but there is a period where the access into the quarry itself off Brickworks Lane and the footpath, Gisborne footpath forward does cross, so there is there, but this again was acceptable at the time of the 2016 romp, and then no changes are proposed as part of this application.
So the footpath crosses Brickwork Lane, but there's no point where the traffic and the pedestrians are walking side by side, so to speak.
No, there is a small section. Sorry, so the entrance to Brickworks Lane off Church Road, there's a temporary diversion of the footpath, so that's taken away from Brickworks Lane. But then when it goes back to the actual footpath in front of the access to the site, there is, so the footpath does cut into that. So there is a short period where there would be vehicular traffic and users of the footpath.
So nowhere between Church Road, apart from that area you've just talked about, and the big dot on that map, none of that.
Oh yeah, no, yeah.
That's all.
Yes,
that's all
sorry.
footpath.
Yeah.
And it's not got traffic running up and down it.
No. So to clarify, there is a section, let's say a small section along Brickworks Lane, where the access into the quarry site, there is an overlap there.
That.
But after that, the footpath follows along, which is Brickworks Lane. There are a couple of properties there, but that's obviously not part of this planning application. And then the footpath goes into a field, and then it doesn't conflict with the quarry again until you get to that crossing point in phase 3. And as shown on that plan, where that blue dot is in relation to this variation and where the crossing point is located.
Could we have a look at the photograph that you have of the crossing point, please? Or the two photographs? So, is that what's there at the present?
Yes, so the applicant has already gone ahead and done that.
So, if I look at the left-hand photograph, I'm on the track looking into a field. Is that right?
Yep.
And the other side of that's presumably a gate. I mean, we have these sorts of things on construction sites all over the place. So it's presumably a gate, and I walk through the gate, and I'm immediately in long grass.
Yeah, so that is, so as you can see, they're both fields either side. So this is obviously outside the quarry boundary, but this is where the footpath goes, and then the footpath itself goes into these fields either side.
And on the right-hand one, it looks as if there's a slope down to wherever the photograph was taken. You've got to climb up to get to the gate, then to go into the field.
No, so there's no, so where this photo is taken is along where the internal access Hall Road is for the quarry, and obviously that cuts into the footpath, but you can, let's say, directly walk between the two.
Well, it looks as if it is with some difficulty that there seems to be a difference in level between the field at the position of the gate and the track. Is that not the case?
No.
Okay.
No, as in obviously, it's a track, so there would be some variations in, in the train height, but there's no significant drop or anything, and it potentially is just the angles of the photos that, make it look more extreme than it actually is in reality.
And it looks as if the footpath is not widely used, otherwise it would possibly not be so overgrown. Not that that's got any bearing on...
Exactly. Yes, just to clarify, obviously the usage, the fact there's a public right of way there is a material consideration, and obviously its usage isn't, but obviously I have walked along there to take these photos, and I've been to the site a few times, and these from either side, it goes into these two fields, and it's clearly not well used, but that in itself is not material because it is a public right of way, which is a material consideration.
And those two fields, they're not in the same ownership as the quarry? Or are they?
Yeah, I don't know the details of the ownership, but in terms of the quarry extraction area, these two fields aren't part of the planning application, so they're effectively outside the red line boundary.
but if they were in the same ownership, but not part of the quarry, we'd have a blue line on the map, would we not?
Yes,
so
that's
we
correct.
can assume that they're not owned by the same person who owns the quarry.
That's correct, yeah.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Billy? No? We'll now move on to the public participation session, and we've received 2 requests to speak on this item. I'd like to invite an objector to the application, Mr. Robert Marshall, to come forward to the public speaking table. Please turn on your microphone. You have 5 minutes to address the committee.
Hello, can you hear me okay? Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today. I'm Robert Marshall. I am a resident of Gislam and directly impacted from the exposure that this site presents. I've got 3 points I'd just like to cover. Just the context on the planning. Obviously, the contractor stated the time impact to the current project is the reason why they want to do this. But obviously time shouldn't be a consideration against safety of people. The original approval was 10 years old, as was just said, as approved by the committee last year in November, and the conditions were set by the planning department and accepted by the contractor. The conditions the timeline for the completion of phase 3 was potentially September 25 this year. Condition 8, as Billy's already said, no objections shall commence within phase 3 until public footpath has been diverted in accordance with approved diversion order. For me, the intent of condition 8 is to divert the footpath and to protect people by moving them away from that plant. What's being proposed is actually now corralling people into the hazard area. You've got to cross that site. So I'm not sure if the committee are actually aware that the work has actually started on this already before the diversion was already in place. So basically the consultations of people, objections, have not even been considered. The work's actually ongoing. Actually, it's complete. It was complete on Wednesday. So basically, I think Billy's already said, there is an alternative footpath that has been proposed, imminent approval. It's almost just over the line. So that planning has always been in line with the time frame of this project. The second point is just public right-of-way. As myself or any person, we have a right as a member of the public to walk on a public right-of-way unobstructed. This crossing point is not a stile across a fence, it's a major haul route. You've got 300 earth movers moving backwards and forwards across that a day. You know, I'll put the video footage on the actual, my objection. The actual size of these, the noise, the dust created. There's already corporate complaints in place regarding the dust at this site, as well as an ombudsman complaint. In public right-of-way, you know, this is children using this area, walking your dog across this area into that hazard area. So as we said, consider public right-of-way 4 is almost an imminent approval on this site and has always been in line with what the contractor's doing on the site. So the risk presented, really, you're all intelligent people in the room. No one's going to tell me that the 300 earth movers moving across there does not present a significant risk. As I said, I put the video footage just so everyone's fully aware. The noise, the sound, the dust, what is created. You know, you're talking about very basic mitigating circumstances. You're putting a scaffold gate to prevent this. You know, actually just down the road, there's 2 children live there, 50 metres away, that walk their dog They've got to go into that hazard area. Absolutely shocking, to be quite honest. And that site is actually, the work is complete. And just remember, condition 8, the intent is to prevent people going into the risk area. What you're actually proposing is putting them in the risk area. I work in health and safety, and I challenge anybody to say that there's no health or public risk to this proposal. What else have I got to say? Yeah, just considering risk assessment then. It's always about hierarchy of control, elimination and substitution. There is a clear option, public footpath 4, imminent approval, could be used and divert people away from it. So just considering that. Just so for my summary then, condition 8 has been breached for the last 3 months with no enforcement action. There is an alternative public right-of-way which could be used and should be used. And the timeline set by the actual contractor for September this year, they're actually complete now in June, 3 months ahead of schedule. Jolly good to them, brilliant. People at risk. I think I'm not allowed to ask any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Marshall. I do apologise, but the 5 minutes are up.
I would like to put just a question for the minutes of the meeting, if I'm allowed to. I'm not allowed to address directly.
Yeah, unfortunately, we won't be able to allow that, Mr. Marshall.
Perfect. Thank you.
Members, do you have any questions of clarification for Mr. Marshall? Please note it is for clarification only. We will not enter into debate at this time. Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Marshall, I just would be grateful if you could say if you, as a resident locally, agree with our planning advisor's assessment that the footpath is very low traffic. We've seen the pictures of it, but what is it like actually being there year round?
Mr. Marshall, sorry, just put you, that's it.
I beg your pardon. Sorry, it's a right of way that's used by everyone in the area. To be quite honest, the only reason why people haven't been using it is because there's a direct impact from crossing that actual that crossing point. My dog won't even go across that crossing point. I just challenge anybody to 300 earth-moving vehicles. The gentleman already asked about the 2 scaffolding gates. You've got to go through a scaffolding gate, and then you're on a haul route where you've got 300 earth movers going a day with all the dust, noise. You can imagine children just going through there and a dog. You wouldn't put anybody in it. Shocking.
Councillor Ramsay.
Thank you. Could I ask a point of clarification on the alternative public right-of-way suggestion?
Yeah, to be quite honest, it's always been known, and the great, I think it's Sam Thompson, he won't comment on the actual, the site part because he is not allowed to, it's a Suffolk County Council option. But that diversion has always been planned. It's almost over the line. There's been no actual objections to it. It's a complete alternative. Why would you not completely move that? Contractors just pushed on 3 months in breach of condition 8. Shocking.
Thank you. Councillor Welham.
Thank you, Chair. Could you point out where, you talked about people living in cottages or living in houses. Could you point out on the map where they are?
I think Billy could probably show you. It's 50 metres away. There's a house with 2 children.
Is that part of the way along Brickfield Lane?
Yeah, it's right past their house. Oh, sorry,
I can bring it up just to show. I think the phasing plan is slightly more zoomed in. So as you can see, phase 3 to obviously the south of the plan, towards the northeast of that. So obviously outside the red line boundary, there are properties located there off Brickworks Lane. You can see them in the centre.
So they're the opposite side of Brickwork Lane to,
to the
where
quarry.
the buildings on the quarry site are?
Yeah. So there's buildings, so obviously the listed buildings, obviously been a part of the site as a brickworks that are within the site, but there are houses immediately to the south of Brickworks Lane, so outside of the red line boundary, but also using the access off Brickworks Lane.
So do they drive down the public footpath? How do they get there from Church Lane?
So Brickworks Lane is a private road, so that is used as their access. Obviously, I don't know the details of that, but I'm sure there's, they have access rights to access their properties, and then on the definitive map, that's also the same location as the footpath.
Thank you.
Are there any more questions for Mr. Marshall? No? Sorry, Councillor Bains.
Mr. Marshall, thanks for coming along with that. You were obviously referencing the young family that lives down the road. I just wanted to clarify, have you been asked to object on their behalf, or is that just something that you've taken on? Thank you.
Sorry, am I on there? To be quite honest, the other residents of Gislam have given up. Our voice has just not been heard in this whole project from the initial parts last year, and I am representing all the residents in the area. They're friends. That's a Spillins family, 2 children.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm just going to come in there and clarify that that we haven't had objections from the residents at those properties. The objections we have received are from Mr. Marshall and those that reside at Mr. Marshall's property.
There's 2 properties there, actually.
Councillor Whittle.
Hello, Mr. Marshall.
Morning.
I'm asking, are there any existing clear public rights-of-way finger posts to the either end of the public rights-of-way at the moment?
There are a public right-of-way. You can actually get a nice bridge from where the cottage is, goes across, and it just there is a clear direction to where where this new crossing point is proposed. Well, not proposed, it's already been used.
So there are existing signs to make it clear that there is a public rights-of-way there?
There is, yes.
Thank you.
Are there any more questions for Mr. Marshall? No. Thank you, Mr. Marshall.
Thank you.
Please can I invite the representative for the applicant, Mr. Andrew Hack, to come forward to the public speaking table. Please turn on your microphone and you have 5 minutes to address the committee.
Chair, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak to the committee in support of this Section 73 application you are being asked to determine. I am the Land and Estates Manager for Mick George Limited, the applicant. The application before you, as explained, seeks to vary Condition 8 attached to the existing planning permission at Gislam Brickworks, which permits the extraction of clay. Condition 8 currently requires public footpath 4 to be formally diverted before any operations commence in phase 3 of the quarry. An application for the diversion of footpath 4 was submitted by the applicant back in November of last year. That process is continuing and progressing via the public rights team here at County Hall. In the light of the procedures to be followed and the length of time it ordinarily takes to divert a public footpath and the contractual needs for clay from Gislam to serve the Ben Acre Flood Alleviation Scheme, the application before you seeks to approve a managed crossing point of footpath 4 until it can be formally diverted. Members of the committee will be familiar with the Ben Acre Flood Alleviation Scheme, a strategic project that seeks to protect homes, businesses, farmland and the A12. It's a project of over £59 million funded by the County Council, the Environment Agency and contributions from Sizewell C. The clay from Gislam has been identified as both local and suitable for that flood alleviation scheme. That said, the applicant acknowledges this application is in part retrospective, with the delivery from Gislam having already started before the process of diverting footpath 4 can be formally completed and put in place. But as already stated, that diversion process is underway and has been since last November. It is also noted and respected that some neighbours have objected to this variation of condition application, and it is the reason why this application finds itself before the committee today. But it is also considered of equal, if not greater significance, that from the statutory consultations upon the application, there have been no objections raised. This includes from Gislam Parish Council, East Suffolk Council Planning, East Sussex Council, Environmental Protection, County Highways, County Air Quality Consultants, County Noise Consultants, and perhaps most significant of all, County Public Rights of Way. None of these have raised objections to the proposed crossing point of footpath 4, and which is only an interim arrangement until the formal diversion of footpath has been approved and implemented. The crossing point has been carefully designed in consultation with the County Public Rights of Way team and placed public safety at its core. The planning officer is also commended for the comprehensive report presented today and in professionally dealing with all the different aspects raised by the objections made to the application. Several of these aspects lie outside the scope of this variation of condition application or will already be covered by planning conditions controlling the activities at the quarry. But if I may repeat one sentence taken from the report, which I consider adds important context to the decision you are making today. Subject to the existing quarry conditions and the proposed quarry arrangements, no unacceptable impacts have been identified in relation to highways, residential amenity, biodiversity, air quality, noise, landscape, flood risk, or drainage. It is, in summary, the approval is being sought for a temporary, controlled and well-managed footpath crossing that will maintain pedestrian safety, preserve public access, enable continued local supply of clay to be delivered to the flood scheme. The underlying diversion application of footpath 4 remains in progress.
Thank you, Mr. Hack. I do apologise for interrupting, but the 5 minutes is up. Members, do you have any questions or clarification? Councillor Welham.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your words there. You talked about a managed crossing point. So if I'd heard that somebody has a managed crossing point, it would suggest to me that there are people on site. So what exactly is a managed crossing point in this context? And the other question is, what signage is there on the approach to the crossing point?
The crossing point is managed when obviously the quarry is open, which is during the normal working day, and there will be site personnel on site and a supervisor charged with regularly looking at and checking the integrity of the crossing point, that there's no debris at the crossing point, and making sure, as I say, that the access gates and controls are all in place.
Sorry, so does that person have the authority to stop a quarry vehicle if there is somebody waiting to cross on the public footpath?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Right. There would be a supervisor there, obviously priority is given to pedestrians crossing the point, but there is equally those barriers, so no one inadvertently walks onto the crossing point, and there is signage as well, agreed in consultation with the rights of way team.
So if I'm working on the quarry and I'm driving one of these big machines, as I approach the crossing point, there is some signage to tell me that I might have to stop.
There is signage to the drivers that they are approaching the crossing point. Their height and elevation in the machine also gives them good view both ways to see if there is anyone approaching or crossing the footpath.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Ramsay.
Thank you. Have any near misses or serious accidents been reported to the Health and Safety Executive relating to the crossing point, or any police reports for accidents, please?
To my knowledge, no safety incidents have been reported in relation to the crossing point.
Okay, thank you. And just a second question. With the traffic movements, is cleaning along the footpath section something that's carried out to prevent that pedestrian route becoming hazardous?
Sorry to be rude. Could you speak up a bit, please?
Oh, sorry, I do apologise. Is there a cleaning regime that is applied for the section of the footpath, so areas that could be covered in debris from your traffic movements?
The crossing point itself is made ground, it is earth. So it is all that will be done is if there is any debris or any material had fallen off a lorry, any lumps, that would be removed at the crossing point. But there are controls and cleaning regimes for the vehicles when they leave the site, with a road sweeper engaged on site as appropriate to maintain the integrity of the road.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Thanks.
Councillor Whittle.
Hello there. I'd like to know about the person that will be managing the crossing point. Can you please explain how they should be qualified to manage a crossing point, and what hours will they be managing the crossing point, and on what days they'll be managing the crossing point?
When the quarry is open and operational, there will be a supervisor on site. In terms of their qualification, it will be by experience, practice and instruction, but they will be experienced in both operating plant and machinery, health and safety, and environmental impacts of operations is part of regular training and daily practice to make sure that operations are safe and appropriate.
Councillor Molyneux.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thanks for your presentation. It sort of strikes me that no one objected, potentially because it was already happening. I was just wondering what the sort of rationale was before, for forging ahead and going and continuing with the works before any of this been sorted out.
Condition 8 obviously sought that footpath 4 was diverted before we commenced operations in phase 3. As I say, the application was made last November to formally divert footpath 4, but as explained, the time and processes that needed to be followed take time. Against that backdrop was the requirement for clay to be delivered to the Ben Acre Flood Alleviation Scheme to meet their contract requirements. So faced with that dilemma, we submitted the application to put in a temporary crossing measure until we can formally divert footpath 4. But from, as I say, the competing requirements for the Ben Acre Flood Alleviation Scheme to receive material from Gislam, is the situation we arrive at, and hence, the control measures and putting in this application to seek approval for this temporary measure until it can be diverted. And in terms of the consultations, that was obviously part of the planning application to all of the consultees, and to which has been reported, no objections from the statutory consultees or Gisland Parish Council.
Councillor Ramsay.
Thank you. So just refreshing my memory on the staffing of the crossing point, I've been given the impression that it's the manner of a supervisor, perhaps even a banksman, supervising that crossing point. So if I went there today and was using that crossing point, would I see a visible member of staff who was involved in that, and when vehicular movements were coming out, they were supervising that? Or is it simply the case that there's a supervisor within the site who is managing general site operations that may include the crossing?
The supervisor on site could be anywhere on site. They may be operating a machine. There will be at least 3, if not 4 people on site. And if they are in the machines operating, they have walkie-talkies between themselves. So if a driver is using the footpath and observes pedestrians are in the vicinity, on the walkie-talkie, a message would go out that there are pedestrians using the footpath, but the supervisor could be anywhere on site at any point of the working day.
Are there any other questions? Councillor Bains.
Thanks, Chair. You mentioned about the opening times for the site. Is it possible that it could operate outside of those times, or is it a hard, fast no, it's open between X?
From our perspective, it is a hard, fast timeline. We have to operate within the operating hours approved under the planning permission, and that's what we would do.
Thank you.
Members, any more questions for Mr. Hack? No? Thank you, Mr. Hack.
Thank you.
I'll now invite Case Officer to respond to any points raised.
No, nothing to add at this stage.
Okay, so are there any more further points of clarification for the planning officer before we move to debate? No? Thank you. I will now open the debate to members. Councillor Welham.
There seems reluctance from everybody to say anything. I just feel we're between a rock and a hard place here. When I asked the question about the managed crossing, I thought that I was being told that there's somebody on site, when I thought, but there are on site, but they may not even be within sight, IGHT, of the site, SITE. So the material has to be used. There seem to be no objections at all from statutory objectors. Officers are happy with it, but I've just got this feeling that you've got these big machines and there could be somebody standing there all of the time watching out for pedestrians. But and when I asked the question about, we were talking about when something drops off the back of one of these vehicles, it's immediately, debris is immediately removed. Well, the driver doesn't know it's dropped off the back. How do they radio to say that there's a need for somebody to go there and tidy it up? I just feel that it isn't a managed crossing in the way that I would have expected it to be. And if there really are this number of vehicle crossing movements, then I think it does justify that. Although there appear to be no very, very few people using the crossing, but we're not to take that into account. We mustn't take into account that on any given Tuesday there'll be nobody using it, but we do need it to be safe if somebody does. And I'm still concerned that more could be done to operate that crossing point more safely. But I guess there's nothing that we can do to insist upon that in planning.
Just to clarify for members and paint a picture of what happens at other sites that may be helpful, this would be the industry standard. There are other sites that have similar arrangements in terms of there will be someone on site at all times, but there's not someone sat there or stood there at all times, manning or whatever the phrase is, making sure that they're there at all times. But you're right in highlighting that there hasn't been any safety objections from the public rights of way team. And I would consider this to be the industry standard for a crossing of a right of way.
Councillor Whittle.
I'd like some advice, please, regarding the person to manage the traffic crossing point. I understand that there needs to be a traffic marshal called a banksman, and it sounded like experience. But I'd like to know what that experience should be. I'm expecting it ought to be someone who's properly qualified, such as an NPORS or a CPS traffic marshal course, someone who's qualified. I'm just thinking if there was an accident, I think these big vehicles, if it was to have a serious accident, an investigation, I would have expected the site operator to have someone who was properly qualified to manage heavy vehicles with people.
Yeah. So they're under the health and safety executive. There'll have to be someone with that sort of experience as a site manager, and the Environment Agency will also require an environmentally competent person, similarly, to be a site manager and to be on site. Those fall outside of our planning regulations, but those regulations should cover that off.
Would it be possible that we can add a note that we'd expect the operator to be able to provide that assurance?
Yes, you could do that as a committee.
Thank you.
Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Chair. Does there exist the option of entirely suspending the right-of-way pending the diversion coming online in due course?
The short answer is no. So any form of development, if, for example, public rights of way crosses the access or something, just because you grant planning permission, you can't close up a public right of way just because of the development is approved. It requires its own formal legal process, and that's why there's currently this diversion order with the public rights of way team.
Councillor Ramsay, did you have?
Thank you. What concerns me is that there are various applications and then operations that are in progress actually at the site, and the risk profile to the public might have been eliminated or substituted with various controls we may have been able to put in place. Can you give some kind of reassurance that with these various applications, both the operator carrying out their operations and the comments that have, and guidance that have been put in by officers on specific matters, do you feel that they kind of adequately cover obligations to the public using that right of way? Given that kind of whole strategic picture?
Yeah, I can expand that point, and so I've also got my colleague from Monitoring Enforcement team if she wants to add any other points. But in terms of this application before you now, you know, I'm not trying to say they haven't breached Condition 8, because the photos show they've already done this crossing point before, you know, this application, you know, had been determined. During the consultation of the application, the Public Rights Away team, you know, as the statutory body for Public Rights Away, were consulted, and they provided no objection to the application. And within their comments, they stated they visited the site and obviously this crossing point, and they have, you know, they have no issues with it. So obviously, you know, in terms of Public Rights Away, as the statutory consultee for Public Rights Away, sorry, I should say the Public Rights Away team, obviously their, you know, their key priority is the, you know, the safe operation of Public Rights Away, and users of those Public Rights Away are safe, and obviously the Public Rights Away aren't restricted. So obviously themselves, that is their key focus, and as I said, they responded to the planning application with no objection, and obviously now the recommendation is for approval at committee.
Would anyone else like to enter debate at this stage? Okay, if nobody else wants to enter debate, I'm quite happy to propose the motion in front of us with the note of qualification for somebody on site. So yeah, can I get a seconder for the motion? Thank you, Councillor Whittle. Are there any further comments? It has been proposed by Councillor Allen and seconded by Councillor Whittle to approve the application planning permission subject to the conditions as set out in Appendix A, with a note as expressed about qualification. We will now move to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions? Just one. So that is 9 votes in favour, 0 against and 1 abstention. Therefore, the motion is carried. That concludes today's Development and Regulation Committee meeting. Thank you to everyone for your attendance and your patience and contributions today. Before you go, the next meeting of the Development Regulation Committee is scheduled to be held at 10 a.m. on Tuesday the 21st of July. The next site inspection reserve date for planning matters is scheduled for the morning of 17th of July. I declare this meeting closed.